This movie will stretch your nerves until it snaps them and then keeps stretching them. So The Stranger starts off with this couple, Kristen and James, and they are heading up to like James's like childhood cabin in the woods. And the drive up is like really tense, and we find out it's because James proposed to Kristen and she said no. Anyway, once we're up at the cabin, James decides that it's too tense for him up there, so he calls his friend Mike and he says, "Can you come get me in the morning? I'm just like, I don't want to spend the night here." Now, Kristen and Mike are kind of like edgily talking to each other and hanging out at the cabin, and while they're doing this, they hear a knock at the front door, so they go answer it. And on the other side of the door is a girl who we can't see her face because of like the lighting. Mind you, it is like past 12 at night at this point. And this girl asks, "Is Tamara home?" and say, "Nope, sorry, wrong house," so she leaves. Now at this point, James tells Kristen, he says, "I'm gonna go into town and get some cigarettes, I'll be back," but before he leaves, he lights a fire in the fireplace for her. So now Kristen is left alone in the house and she's kind of just hanging out doing her thing, and there's another knock on the door. This time, Kristen doesn't open the door, but she asks, like, through the door, she says, "Who's there?" And it's the same girl, and she says, "Is Tamara here?" And Kristen says, "You already came here, it's the wrong house, there's no Tamara." So the girl goes away. So now the fire alarm goes off because it's triggered by the fireplace. So Kristen stands on a chair, and she tries to, like, knock it off the ceiling, which she's able to do, and it lands on the floor. Before she can pick it up, however, there's another knock at the door. Kristen now calls James to tell him he should get his ass back to the house because the girl came back and she's a little freaked out, but of course, because it's a horror movie, the line drops. Kristen is now walking around the house doing her own thing, and she can't see this, but we, the audience, can see that behind her, there is this fucker in a mask watching her. Eventually, Kristen sees the fire alarm, but it's not on the floor where she, like, knocked it down, it's actually up on the chair that she was standing on. So now Kristen's aware that there is someone in the house with her. Kristen then hears a noise, so she goes to investigate, and when she opens like the blinds to the window, she can see the masked man right here. He is back outside and he's watching her. It might be one of the best jump scares of the movie. It's terrifying. This guy is actually the scariest of the three. He sets my nerves on edge. Suddenly, the door is starting to be forced open, and Kristen runs to close it, but before she can close it, we see a little bit of this face, who we call Dollface, outside. Kristen now is obviously terrified, so she hides in a bedroom, and she hears footsteps, but turns out it's just James coming back home. Kristen and James start to kind of walk around the house because James doesn't believe Kristen, which is tells him that there's someone in the house, and they look outside through a window, and Dollface is standing in the distance just watching them. Also turns out Kristen can't find her cell phone, and we, the audience, see that it has been thrown in the fire when she left it charging, so she has no idea where it is. Now, James tells Kristen that he's going to go get his phone from where he left it in the car, and she, like, begs him not to, but he ultimately does it, and when he walks outside, we can see his car has been completely wrecked and vandalized. Glass smashed everywhere. It's insane. Also, James' phone has, like, vanished from the car. James looks around and he sees, like, a Dollface standing in the distance, and this time he yells at her. He's like, "What do you want? What the fuck do you want?" And she just runs away. James also gets grabbed from behind while he's in the car, and that freaks him out enough to run back into the house to Kristen, and he tells her that they're both going to get in the car and they're both just going to go back to town because the car is drivable and it's too creepy up here. Kristen says yes, and they go get in the car, but as soon as they start to back up in the car, they are rear-ended by someone who we, the audience, call Dollface. Now the car is actually undrivable, so Kristen and James have no choice but to flee back into the house. James now starts searching the bookshelf because he knows that his family keeps a gun there, and when he finds this gun, he and Kristen both run into one of the bedrooms, and they try and find the bullets. James then also remembers that there is actually a radio outside in the shed, like a little bit away from the house, so he tells Kristen that he's going to go for the radio and she should stay in the house and hide. But before they can do that, the man in the mask actually starts to axe down the door, so James shoots, but he misses. Kristen and James then run down the hallway to a room without a window, and they stay there and they kind of hide there with the gun. In the next scene, we see James' friend Mike arriving at the house because turns out Mike got James' message from earlier than he thought, and he wanted to be a good friend, so he just showed up early. And in a very, very nerve-wracking scene, one of the two scariest scenes in the movie I consider to be, you see Mike walking around the house, and the whole time he's looking for James and Kristen, he is followed by the masked man holding an axe. Meanwhile, Kristen and James are still hiding in that room, and they hear footsteps coming down the hallway towards them. And in the exact moment that we see someone's figure come around the side of the door, James shoots them and kills them. But turns out that it is Mike, and James just killed his best friend. R.I.P. Mike, we loved you. And poor James doesn't even have time to really mourn over this, because he decides that now is like a good time to just go book it, and he runs for the shed to get the radio. And while Mike is outside, he sees two of the killers, and he knows it's two of them because there's flashlights, so he shoots at one of them, but the man in the mask comes running up behind him, full on fucking speed running, and knocks him out. Now Kristen decides to go for the radio, and she actually makes it to the barn, but the pinup girl comes up behind her and smashes the radio with an axe. Kristen makes it back into the house, but she runs into Dollface, and she's actually able to escape and run into the bedroom. Then the lights suddenly come back on, and Kristen ends up kind of coming out of the bedroom back down the hallway, but the man in the mask attacks her and knocks her out. When Kristen comes to, we can see that it is now daylight out, and she is strapped to a chair, and James is sitting next to her, also strapped to a chair, and all three stalkers are standing in front of them. Now, every horror fan knows this scene because Kristen is crying, and she asks, "Why are you doing this to us?" And in the most iconic and scariest lines in horror cinema, Dollface replies, "Because you were home." Yeah, that's right. These three had no motive. They just attacked James and Kristen because they happened to be home. Next, the three strangers take off their masks, but due to the camera angle, we can't see this. And these three take turns stabbing James and Kristen until they are both offed. Next, the three strangers calmly walk out of their house, get into their pickup truck, and start driving down the road. However, while they're driving, they see these two boys here who appear to be handing out like religious pamphlets, and they stop the car, and Dollface gets out of the car. Dollface asks these two boys for a pamphlet, which the two boys ask her, "Are you a sinner?" And she replies, "Sometimes." So they give her a pamphlet, and the three strangers drive off. The two boys keep riding their bikes until they come up to the house, and they actually go inside the house, and they find the bloody, disastrous scene of all three victims, Kristen, James, and Mike, lying dead on the floor. And in the last scene of the movie, we see one of the two boys lean down to touch Kristen, and she grabs his arm, and she wakes up screaming, and then it goes blackout, and credits roll. Alright guys, if you like this video, leave me a like, and also drop a comment saying what other movies I should cover, horror movies, and I will cover them.